Good day and welcome. You are watching Plain to Protect with Melodie Bissell, the safest podcast on the internet. My name is Josh Bissell, and I'm the producer of this weekly podcast, where we will be tackling topics of safety with a focus on achieving the highest standard of abuse prevention and protection for the vulnerable sector each week. Our podcasts are designed for parents, caregivers, program leaders, and senior leaders of organizations that service the vulnerable sector. Once again, Melody is back with us today. Melodie Bissell is the president and CEO of Plan to Protect and the expert in all things protection. Melody is a author, inspiring speaker, blogger, and now podcaster. So, welcome once again to Plan to Protect with Melodie Bissell. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello. I remember as a young child being told children should be seen and not heard. I remember my parents telling me that I was always to obey those that are older than me. What about the common response to the question, why? Because I'm your parent, I told you so. I recall a time when my daughter was in grade 4 and her teacher said to her, "What happens in this classroom stays in this classroom. You are not to tell anyone what happens in this classroom." Is this control? There is certainly an element of power differential in these comments. When is it a misuse of power, a misuse of authority? Is it wrong for a child to ask the question, why? Is it wrong for a child to say no and exert their independence? When is it right for an adult to exercise authority? When is it a misuse of power? Just as a reminder, during the month of November, we are speaking about the topic of power differentials. So, just as a reminder, I'm going to just review the definition that was given to you last week. There are natural power differentials in many, but not all, relationships with children, including those between a parent and a child, a teacher and a student, an employer and an employee, and of course, healthcare practitioners and clergy. Parents, teachers, clergy, and healthcare practitioners have powerful positions of influence, and they do impact the well being of the child. The child, whether they're a student, an employee, they are more vulnerable in their position. In theory and ethical practice, the power differential exists for the purpose of bringing benefit to these more vulnerable individuals. That is, the child's well being should be nurtured by a parent, the student enhanced by the teacher's teaching. An employee should benefit from the employer's management, the patient cared for by the healthcare giver. As I said, during this month, we are raising awareness of power differentials in our social media posts, in our blogs, articles, podcasts, and training. Our goal is to help you avoid this landmine, which could, if not avoided, cause you to end up in court. Today, we are going to examine the power differentials with children. How easy it is in positions of power to lord it over others, whether that be your height, your weight, your role, your title, your statute, the clothes that you wear. Among adults and older youth, there's often a natural imbalance of power over children. I believe one of the most challenging things about leadership and parenting is determining how to effectively lead with integrity. As a young mom of preschoolers, I can remember hearing Elisa Morgan, who was at the time the president of MOPS, Mothers of Preschoolers, say that she would lock herself in her bedroom and cry out to God to protect her children from herself. Have you ever felt like that as a parent? Yes, there are many moments and every day when parents have to check their responses. One of the principles for reducing the risk of abuse, injury, and harm is recognizing the risk increases when there is an imbalance of power, authority, influence, and control. We teach this principle as we consider ways of reducing the risk of abuse. Risk of what? Risk of harming our children, risk of exploiting our power, risk of exercising inappropriate discipline, risk of abuse, whether that be physically, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, or even sexually. A parent who seizes all the power, believing a child should do as he's told or she is told, never allowing the child to question parental authority can result in very unhealthy environment for the whole family. And it really does allow for abuse to occur. As much as we may want our children to grow up to be well behaved, healthy citizens and adults, within minutes we can cross the line of exploiting that power. No child deserves to be harmed because we abuse the power and authority that has been given to us and entrusted to us. If a child steals something, hits their sibling, swears in the playground, spills their milk, that never warrants us to abuse our power to cause physical or emotional harm. I'm going to say that again. If a child steals something, hits their sibling, swears in the playground, spills their milk, that never warrants us to abuse our power to cause physical or emotional harm. So don't get me wrong. As parents, it's so easy to cross the line of what is appropriate. I get that. I understand. We can lose our control. We can lose our patience. We can lose our cool. We can raise our voice and lash out in anger. But does that make it right? No. What we need as parents and caregivers, as teachers, as Sunday school leaders, as community workers, as babysitters, caregivers, we need constraints. Constraints is a limitation or restriction. We need to learn that ourselves. It is the parent, the teacher, the caregiver that needs to learn the constraints. We need constraints to live healthy and happy lives. The definition of a constraint is something that imposes a limit or restriction, or what prevents something from occurring. So, yes, we need constraints. An example of a constraint is the fact that there are only so many hours in a day to accomplish things. Elisa, when she locked herself in the bedroom and cried out to protect her children from her, she was using constraints. She knew she had to go lock herself away to lower her boiling frustration and irritability. Depending on your relationship as parents, together you can help each other in a respectful way to discover healthy constraints. Perhaps this is being able to speak into each other's lives. Hey, babe, why don't you go for a walk? Let me take the children for a little while. Know your own needs and limitations as a parent. Self awareness is so key to having a high emotional quota. Face it, you are not a perfect parent. You're an imperfect parent. We all are imperfect. You have strengths and you have weaknesses. Recognize your abilities. I am loving. I am dedicated. I am a good mother. And as a good mother, as a good grandmother, as a good teacher, as a good caregiver, I need to work on my weaknesses and have a personal improvement plan. And that may be learning how to control your frustrations and implement those constraints into your life. I need to be more consistent in discipline. I need to be able to control my voice level. I need to count to 10 when I'm frustrated. I need a timeout. Try to have realistic expectations for yourself, your spouse, and your child. You don't have to have all the answers. Be ready, quick to ask for forgiveness. I was not a perfect mother. However, I knew that I could ask forgiveness, and my children were often forgiving of me. Be quick to forgive them and be quick to ask for forgiveness. Think about how hilarious it is when you hear the term a parent say to a child or a teacher say to a child or a student in their classroom, will you please act like an adult? That should make us smile when we're saying to a young child, will you please act like an adult? They are just a child. Try to make parenting a manageable task. This is one of the most challenging things you will ever do. It's one of the most humbling things you will ever do in your life. Focus on the areas that most need your attention. My older brother used to remind me all the time, Melody, pick your battles. Is this really a battle that's worth fighting for or jeopardizing your relationship? Admit it when you're burned out. Take time out. Ask someone for help. Focusing on your needs, personal care is not selfish. You need to do that for the well being of your whole family. The same thing if you're a teacher or a caregiver. Take a sabbatical, take a rest. If you teach from September to June, take time out during the summer. What about the teacher, the medical practitioner, the coach that abuses power with children? There is so much for us to learn. Sheldon Kennedy was abused by Graham James, sexually abused by Graham James, his junior coach. Sheldon Kennedy wrote the book, Why I Didn't Say Anything. Actually, Sheldon did try to say something. And I think some of the things that Sheldon tried to say to his parents when he was being abused are things that we can hear from children right across our great nation and around the world. Sheldon tried to say to his parents, I don't want to play hockey anymore. I don't like coach. I don't want to go to tournament. Mom and Dad, won't you please go to tournament with me? Sheldon tried to say something. We need to really be aware of what children are saying with their actions and their words, with their pleas. I really encourage you to take time and really listen to children. Now, fasten your seatbelt if you have a strong willed child, and you may have a strong willed child. Your child's defiance is because he doesn't feel heard or understand, and likely is not allowed to have choices in how he does things. There may not always be a choice for the child. They must do some things, they must obey. However, You can give them choices on how it can be done. Give them options. It is always important to ensure children have some choices in their life. It will help them grow to be a well rounded person. Keep in mind that the temperament of a child is the how of behavior. So, what one child does in carrying out the instructions may be completely different than another child. Louder, more intense, bolder, more physical. When this approach is validated, viewed through the lens of the child, there will be more balance. Give children a voice. To restore some calm in your family, in your classroom, in your program and activity, consider balancing power with your children to allow every member to have some personal control. By seeking their opinion, their input with important decisions, and by listening carefully to the child, to their emotional rant, will help begin to bring some balance to the relationship. In our home, we don't all have equal voices. In our home, we didn't all have equal votes, but we were all allowed to vote. My husband would say, okay, everybody gets a vote. Perhaps as parents, we had more votes than the children had, but everyone got a vote. When there is something they must do without a choice, allow them to have choices in how they do it. Example, whether they play immediately after school or do homework immediately after school. Do homework before snack or after snack? Or what about bedtime rituals? Do we do a story before we brush our teeth or after we brush our teeth? So give children some choices. Respect each child's way of doing things. When the issue is non negotiable and you have the authority, maintain firm boundaries. Avoid getting into arguments and power struggles with your children. Be really clear that the answer is no. This is not up for a debate. Be a problem solver with your child, supporting him or her in coming up with ideas without forcing your agenda. Ask questions, listen well without telling them what to say or what to do or how we should even think. Guide them through difficult situations. One of the first steps in overcoming power differential is first identifying that they are there and putting those safeguards in place, those constraints in place to bring about more balance. Help children, as I said, to speak up. One of the greatest gifts we can give children is helping them to find the courage to speak up, to raise their concerns, and to ask questions. With my own children, I wanted them to always show respect to leaders in their lives. So I didn't say you must do everything an adult says that you are to do. You must always obey. I would say to them, you are always to show respect to leaders, but you can question why they are asking you to do that. And you can even respectfully say, no, I do not want to do that. I also always insisted with my children that there was to be no secrets. We welcomed surprises. We welcomed bad news, but we said no secrets. As leaders, we need to check our motivation at the door. What is our motivation for exerting this power and control? Is it so that we can just have a bit more peace in the classroom? Is it so that we get our way? This can happen so easily with children, whether that be in the midst of a divorce, between parents and grandparents, between teachers and parents, between siblings. It really all comes down to bullying. An imbalance of power is just that, one person bullying over another person, isn't it? Bullying is intentional and goal oriented, aggressive behaviors in which the perpetrator exploits the imbalance of power to repeatedly dominate the victim. To differentiate bullying from aggressive behavior, and an assessment has to be done to include a valid measure of power imbalance as perceived by the victim. Perceived by the victim. Remember that bullies beget bullies. Yes, we do need those constraints, and we need to place them on ourselves. We need to come into each other's lives, whether we're team members, whether we're partners in a relationship, whether we're employers and employees. We need to come and balance that power. A child may not have the courage to speak up and say, no, that's wrong. But a spouse, a team member will be able to do that. Finally, in closing, I just want to remind us of the value and the importance of being a really good role model. Young kids learn so much on how to act by watching the adults and the leaders in their life. The younger they are, the more cues they take from you. Before you lash out and blow your top in front of your kids, think about this. Is this how you want your child to behave when they are angry? Be aware that you are constantly being watched by your kids in your classroom and within your home. Studies have shown that children who hit usually have a role model for this aggression at home. Model the traits you wish to see in the kids in your classroom. Model the traits you wish to see in your kids at home: respect, friendliness, honesty, kindness, patience, tolerance, love. Exhibit unselfish behavior. Exhibit unselfish behavior between the two of you as parents. Exhibit unselfish behavior with your employer and your employee, with your team members. Do things for others without expecting a reward. Be a servant leader. Express thanks and appreciation and give compliments out generously. Above all, treat your kids the way you expect other people to treat you. I really hope that this has been helpful. I hope I've given you many tips on how to bring balance with children and adults and those in positions of authority, influence, and control. I want to remind you, during this whole month, we're going to be talking about power differentials. Next week, we'll be talking about sexual harassment and then balance of power when it comes to the topic of sex. We'll provide you case studies and examples of policies and procedures and training to mitigate the risk of this form of harm. This podcast has been sponsored by our Facebook parent page, the Plan to Protect Parent. Go find it on Facebook. Invite other parents and other families to join us. All of our podcasts that relate to parents and children in a parental relationship is posted on that Facebook page. You won't want to miss any one of them. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you don't miss out on any of these podcasts. We're doing a contest during this month and giving out thousands of dollars of prizes. One of the ways that you can be entered in to that draw is by subscribing to our YouTube channel. And when you see us post social media posts, please engage with those posts. We hope you are one of our many recipients for the prizes that we'll be giving away as we lead up to the end of 2020. Take care, everyone. Bye.